They were German women POWs, buried where air ran out and time stopped. For 7 days, they waited for the enemy, not for rescue, but for death. What followed wasn't a battle. It was the moment humanity broke through war. The steel door slammed shut, not as an execution, but as an erasure. There was no gunshot, no final order, because no ending had been announced. Only a dull impact echoed underground, like a mouth sealed forever.
I am so hungry.
We all are.
Just try to rest.
Their clothes were torn, skin caked with mud, and dried blood bodies already marked by collapse. They stood shoulder to shoulder in darkness, not yet understanding what had just happened. No windows, no light, no exit. The bunker was so deep that light didn't disappear. It had never existed there. The air was thick with mold, dead rats, and old waste, every breath a silent threat. The first day passed in silence. On the second, crying began to fade, not from calm, but from exhaustion. They had been abandoned, and hunger had already begun its work. Day 3 began without an announcement, only the bunker's silence breaking from within. Movement crept across the damp floor, small but unmistakable, drawing every weakened eye downward. Rats appeared first, crossing openly, no longer avoiding human presence. The hierarchy had shifted. Humans no longer ruled the space, they endured it. By the third day, fear no longer came from above. It crawled at eye level. From the walls and ceiling, movement began to surface, quiet, persistent, unavoidable. Insects spread across the shadows, turning stillness into a living pattern of unease. They did not rush. They multiplied slowly, claiming every corner. Fear no longer arrived suddenly. It accumulated layer by layer. By now, darkness was no longer empty. It was occupied. The realization came quietly. There would be no more food. Faces thinned, features sharpened, as energy withdrew from the surface. Eyes drifted, unfocused, not searching, just enduring. Hunger did not shout. It announced itself through absence. A stomach's sound echoed loud, only because nothing else remained. By the third day, hunger was no longer a feeling, it was a condition. Her hand moved before thought could intervene. She turned away, unable to face what survival demanded. Tears fell, not from fear but from crossing an invisible line. This was not brutality. It was the moment dignity lost to biology. One body reacted immediately, rejecting what survival had forced upon it. Throats tightened, breath broke, as the senses struggled to adapt. Another woman collapsed, overwhelmed by exhaustion rather than choice. Around them, others continued not from hunger alone, but inevitability. At this stage, the body led. Morality followed behind. By the fourth day, there was nothing left to drink. No damp corners, no hidden reserve, only dryness. Lips cracked, tongues heavy, speech abandoned entirely. Eyes met briefly in the dark communication without words. Thirst did not ask permission, it took control. They turned to what the body could still produce. It was shared quietly, hand to hand, without discussion. There was no shame left to protect. Only function remained. Nearby, rodents moved freely, dust falling from the ceiling onto hair and shoulders. At this point, survival no longer had meaning, only continuity. Faces hollowed, lips split, eyes sinking deeper with every hour. Standing became effort. Remaining upright required negotiation with pain. One woman collapsed where she stood, the body simply refusing further commands. No one rushed forward. Movement now cost more than it returned. The air hung heavy old waste, damp stone, time itself decomposing. They turned to the ground beneath them. Dirt, decayed straw, anything that could occupy the stomach for minutes. This was not hunger, it was calculation. No tears accompanied it. Crying required moisture they no longer had. No complaints followed. Complaints required hope. Meaning disappeared. Function took over. Silence settled in, broken only by the steady rhythm of empty stomachs. In that quiet, thoughts began repeating, without invitation. What would the enemy do if they found us? Because a fast ending seemed kinder than endless waiting. Here, dignity collapsed before the body did, and the true descent began. There was no mourning, no moment of waking. Bodies had crossed beyond exhaustion into something quieter. Day and night collapsed into a single, unmoving weight. Time no longer advanced, it hovered. Without light, the body stopped marking hours. This was not rest, it was suspension between living and letting go. 3 women had died. Their bodies lay still, folded into the cold ground. There was no scream, no name spoken aloud. Death did not arrive dramatically. It simply appeared and remained. Here, death no longer shocked. It blended into the room. 2 women were still breathing. But their eyes were empty, unfocused. No reaction, no recognition. Awareness had withdrawn, leaving the body behind. No one tried to wake them. Everyone understood. Here, the mind left first the body, only followed later. No one had the strength to speak anymore. Even a whisper demanded energy they no longer had. They communicated with dull, unfocused glances. One question repeated itself without words. Who would be next? Faith faded before the body failed. Prayer disappeared by the 5th day. The air grew heavy, like a wet curtain pressing inward. Each breath became a conscious effort. Rats crossed the floor without fear. The women were too weak to drive them away. Bodies stopped responding to intention. Here, biology was running out quietly, relentlessly. Minds drifted away from the bunker. They thought of light, wind, and family not as hope, but as farewell. Death was no longer the greatest fear. The enemy returned in their thoughts. If the enemy came, the end would be faster. The 6th day ended in collective surrender, and then the 7th day began. Day 7. The bunker remained locked in its familiar silence. Then a sound appeared, steady, heavy, and wrong. Not rats, not falling debris. Footsteps. Each step echoed downward like a blow to the chest. It sounded like a heartbeat, but not theirs. They had waited 7 days for this sound, as a sign the waiting would end. The bunker door began to open. Metal scraped against metal, slow and deliberate.
No, please, no! Help us! Oh, God! We're trapped! Let us out!
The sound tore through the silence they had learned to survive. Then light poured down, cold and unforgiving. Eyes shut, bodies dropped. Not in protest, but surrender. In their minds, light meant one thing: the enemy had arrived. As their vision adjusted, figures appeared at the bunker's edge. Clean uniforms, weapons lowered, American soldiers. No one looked up, no one pleaded. They expected the final moment to come quickly. But there was no gunfire, no command, only silence. One by one, they were carried from the ground below. Gloved hands moved slowly, carefully, as if holding something fragile. Blankets covered their bodies not to hide the truth, but to protect what remained. No one called them prisoners. No orders were given. As daylight touched their skin, one realization spread silently. The world still existed. Not everyone survived what came after the bunker. Some bodies were rescued too late for recovery to begin. 15 remained. No one called it luck. It was simply what was left. In the first months, eating felt uncertain, as if food might disappear again. At night, small sounds pulled them back into fear before thought could catch up. Survival had ended. Recovery had only just begun. When freedom came, there was no celebration. Some stood still, uncertain where home even was. A few chose to stay not by force, but by choice. In a place once called the enemy, they found patience and care.
You can rest now.
Trust returned quietly through a cup of water. A simple question. War teaches destruction. Mercy reminds us what victory truly means.